Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I'm your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. Today, we are joined by a man who taught us that it's not easy being green, but it sure is wonderful. For those who may somehow not know who you are you?
Well, most people know me as Jim Henson, the fellow who spent quite a lot of time with a certain frog and a cast of characters we like to call the Muppets.
It's an absolute honour, Jim. To get us started, when and where were you born?
I was born on September 24th, 1936 in Greenville, Mississippi, a beautiful part of the world.
And what was your given name at birth?
My parents named me James Maury Henson.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
Not a terribly long one. It was just a strong family name. My father was Paul Henson, an agronomist, and Maury was a name from his side of the family.
What was your hometown like growing up?
Early on, it was Leland, Mississippi. It was a wonderful rural place near Deer Creek. I spent so much of my time outside, just exploring the swamps and the nature around us. Later on, we moved to Hyattsville, Maryland, which was a bit of a change being a suburb of DC, but it opened up a whole new world of television for me.
What was your family life like?
It was very warm and supportive. I had an older brother, Paul, and we were quite close. My mother, Betty, and my grandmother, who we called Deer, were huge influences. Deer was the one who really encouraged my creative side. She taught me to sew and draw and paint.
What kind of kid were you?
I think I was a bit of a dreamer. I was always drawing or trying to figure out how things worked. I wasn't the loudest kid in the room, but I was always busy with some project or another.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
Honestly, I just wanted to be in television. When my family got our first TV set in 1950, it was the biggest event of my youth. I didn't necessarily dream of being a puppeteer. I just saw television as this magical new medium, and I wanted to be a part of it.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
I loved anything to do with art. In high school, I worked on the scenery for plays and did a lot of graphic design. I even ran a little silk screening business for theater posters when I got to college.
What was your first job?
My very first professional break was in 1954, right before I graduated high school. I heard a local station, WTOP-TV, was looking for puppeteers for a Saturday morning show called The Junior Morning Show. I didn't actually know how to make puppets yet, but I figured it out pretty quickly.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
I'm not sure if I felt different, but I certainly had a different way of looking at things. I remember being in a puppetry class at the University of Maryland and realizing that most people thought of puppets as just for children, but I saw them as a way to create experimental, sophisticated film and art.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Deciding to take that puppetry class in college. I only took it because I thought it would be an easy credit and a way to stay in television. But that's where I met Jane Nebel, who became my creative partner and my wife. Everything grew from that one class.
What was your biggest break?
It had to be Sam and Friends. It was a 5-minute show that aired twice a day in Washington, D.C. It gave me the freedom to experiment with how puppets looked on camera, using the television frame as the stage, rather than a traditional puppet theater. That's where the first version of Kermit appeared.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
In the early days, it was trying to convince people that puppets weren't just for kids. I spent years doing commercials, selling coffee and bread with these silly characters, just to prove that they could appeal to everyone.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Oh, I don't think quitting was in my vocabulary. But there were certainly times I wanted to focus more on experimental filmmaking. I always had several ideas going at once, and sometimes it was a struggle to get people to see the vision for things like The Dark Crystal or Labyrinth.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
I was a big believer in collaboration. My routine was really about the people. I loved sitting in a room with my team, Frank Oz, Jerry Nelson, and the others, and just playing. I'd often say, interesting, but what if we did it another way? That openness to ideas was the most important habit I had.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I likely would have been a graphic artist or a set designer. I loved the visual side of storytelling so much.
How did relationships change after success?
I tried very hard to keep things grounded. My family was everything to me. Jane and I had 5 children, and they were often right there in the studio with us. I viewed my coworkers as a second family too. We all grew up together in this business.
Did fame bring happiness?
It brought the opportunity to do the work I loved, and that brought me immense joy. I never cared much for the fame part of it. I liked staying behind the camera or under the stage.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
People often thought I was just like the characters, very loud or frantic. In reality, I was quite quiet and calm. I also think people were surprised that I had a bit of a darker sense of humor. In the early days, our sketches usually ended with someone getting eaten or something blowing up.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
Definitely my grandmother, dear, for the creativity. And professionally, Edgar Bergen. Watching him perform on the radio and then TV showed me how a character could truly come to life.
What was life like in your final years?
It was incredibly busy. We were working on so many things, the Storyteller, the Jim Henson Hour, and I was in deep discussions about merging our company with Disney. I was always moving forward.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
One of the last big projects I was truly excited about was Muppet Vision 3D for the Disney parks. It was such a fun way to push the technology and bring the Muppets into a new dimension.
When and where and how did you pass away, and how old were you?
I passed away on May 16, 1990 in New York City. I was only 53. It happened quite suddenly from a very severe form of pneumonia that turned into sepsis.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I showed up to my college graduation in a Rolls Royce. I had worked so hard during my college years on Sam and Friends and various commercials that I'd actually saved up enough to buy one. I suppose I liked a little bit of flair.
What was your most unique habit?
I wore a beard for most of my adult life, and part of the reason was to cover up some acne scars I had as a teenager. My agent once said I looked like a cross between Abraham Lincoln and Jesus.
What was your favorite food?
I wasn't a very fussy eater, but I did enjoy a good meal with friends. I don't know that I had one specific favorite, but I certainly appreciated the simpler things in life.
What was your favorite book?
I was a big fan of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Douglas Adams was a good friend of mine, and I loved his sense of the absurd.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Always keep that childlike curiosity. Don't be afraid to be ridiculous just for the fun of it. And most importantly, remember the people who help you get there. Drag your frogs and pigs onto the stage with you when you succeed.
Jim, do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you've shared that you would like to share with the listeners before we sign off?
Oh, just that life is meant to be a bit of a celebration, isn't it? I hope everyone finds something that makes them want to sing and play and create. It's been a real pleasure talking with you, Calvin. Thank you for having me back for a chat.
Thank you, Jim. What a wonderful reminder to keep dreaming and creating. We've had a blast today talking about everything from Mississippi swamps to high-tech puppets. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod